The sky over Earth's northern research zone was quiet, almost unnaturally so. For years, no one had come near the old military facility, buried beneath layers of dust and neglect. Nature had begun reclaiming the area. Cracked roads were overgrown with weeds, and rust crept across the edges of abandoned buildings like a slow-moving tide. No one thought anything important remained there. To the world, the facility was forgotten history, a relic of a past era when humanity feared wars that might span the stars. But deep inside, hidden in reinforced underground chambers, the facility slept, its secrets untouched for decades. Then, one ordinary morning, a group of civilian scientists arrived. They weren't soldiers, nor even fully trained in military technology. They were engineers, programmers, and physicists curious about old projects humanity had abandoned. They had heard rumors of the war machine, a weapon developed at the height of global tensions, and they wanted to study it. Some wanted to restore old systems for peaceful energy experiments. Others simply wanted to see history firsthand as the team made their way down the crumbling corridors. Their flashlights cut through thick layers of dust and darkness. The silence was almost suffocating. Every metallic echo of their footsteps reminded them how long this place had been abandoned. Machines once humming with energy now sat silent, wires dangling like dead vines. Screens were dark, panels broken, but a faint glow came from a single massive chamber at the end of a long hall. Inside, they found it. The war machine. It was enormous, towering like a steel giant, with sleek armor plates and an intricate network of mechanisms visible under its surface. It wasn't just a machine. It was a carefully crafted combination of engineering, artificial intelligence, and destructive capability. Its creators had poured decades of work into it, building a weapon designed not just to fight wars, but to end them decisively. The scientists stared in awe, unable to believe such a creation had been forgotten. One of them ran a hand along the cool metal. It was still intact. Every joint, every panel, every fiber optic circuit seemed untouched by time. Somehow, this sleeping giant had survived decades of neglect. Do you think it still works? One of them whispered, "No." Another replied, though her voice trembled, "Not fully. But some systems are still alive. Look at those lights, some part of it is active, even now." Curiosity turned into careful investigation. The team explored control panels and old logs, slowly piecing together what the machine was capable of. Its power source was unlike anything used in modern technology. Its targeting systems could calculate trajectories faster than the human eye could follow. The AI running its operations had learning algorithms so advanced that it could anticipate enemy moves before they happened. Meanwhile, far beyond Earth, deep in space, a signal reached the Galactic Empire's scouts. They had been monitoring human activity, but had dismissed Earth as insignificant, a minor backwater, planet not worth their attention. But the signal they intercepted told a different story. Something on Earth was active again. Something dangerous. Back on Earth, the scientists didn't know this. They debated, argued, and laughed nervously, fascinated by the war machine, but unaware of the impending threat. Some wanted to deactivate it completely. Others suggested just studying it. But a strange hum had begun to emanate from the machine itself, almost like a heartbeat. It grew steadily, filling the chamber with vibrations that made the air feel heavier. One of the engineers noticed the hum wasn't random. It matched the rhythm of the machine's internal systems waking up. Screens flickered. Panels shifted. Small lights blinked in sequence, forming patterns across the control consoles. The war machine was alive in a way the team had not expected. It didn't move yet, but the intelligence within it was stirring, observing, calculating. What if it decides to react? One of them said quietly. No, another said, trying to reassure everyone. It's just activating some maintenance protocols. That's all. But the truth was more complicated. The machine had been designed not only to defend Earth, but to anticipate attacks from far beyond the planet. Its sensors, dormant for decades, had just begun to detect something massive moving toward Earth at incredible speed. The Empire's fleet was approaching, though the scientists had no idea how close it already was. Night fell over the research zone. Outside, the wind carried the faint sound of rustling trees, but underground, tension filled the air. The scientists worked tirelessly, documenting what they could, running simulations on ancient computers linked to the machine. Each test activated more of its internal systems, and with each flicker of light, the machine seemed more aware of its surroundings. One of the engineers noticed an unusual pattern on a display. Energy readings spiked in irregular intervals. She frowned. It's reacting to something. I don't know what, but it's aware of a presence beyond the facility. The others froze. They realized the machine wasn't just a passive relic. It was scanning, analyzing, preparing for something it had not faced in decades. The sense of awe shifted to fear. They were no longer just curious explorers. They had awakened a force humanity had long forgotten, a force capable of unimaginable destruction. The hum grew louder. The lights pulsed in rhythm with some internal logic the team could barely understand. The machine systems began to test the limits of its mechanical limbs, flexing metal joints with quiet precision. Even in its dormant state, it was readying for something. Outside, across the planet, ordinary people went about their lives, unaware that the fate of humanity rested in a rusted underground chamber. Governments had no idea. Military satellites detected nothing unusual, and news outlets continued reporting ordinary stories. But a storm was approaching, an invisible one, moving across the void of space, heading straight for Earth. The scientists argued late into the night. Should they fully power it up? Should they try to communicate with it? Some feared the war machine might interpret any command incorrectly and act without restraint. Others argued that activating it fully could be the only chance to defend Earth if the Empire discovered the planet. Finally, as dawn broke, a consensus formed. They would attempt a limited activation, just enough to understand the machine's current state. They had no idea how close the Empire already was, but instinct told them they were running out of time. The first sequence began. Lights blinked faster. Mechanical sounds echoed through the chamber. The machine's systems ran diagnostics at a speed that made human brains struggle to keep up. The team watched in tense silence, knowing that the line between curiosity and catastrophe was thin. And then, for the first time in decades, a screen lit up with a message they could not fully understand, a complex pattern of symbols and numbers that seemed almost alive. The war machine was speaking, not in words, but in data. It was aware of them. It had recognized that humans had returned, and that the planet might soon face a threat, unlike any it had seen before. The scientists could feel the weight of history pressing down on them. They were not just observers. They had become the guardians of a weapon capable of ending civilizations. The reality sank in slowly, like ice in water. They were standing at the edge of something monumental, something terrifying, something that could either save humanity or destroy it entirely. Outside, the sky brightened with the morning sun, calm and indifferent. But below, in the shadows of the old research facility, a giant machine had awakened. Its eyes, sensors, and circuits were alive. And somewhere far away, across the dark stretches of space, the Empire was already moving. The stage was set. Earth had a hidden weapon, a relic from a time when fear ruled humanity. And now, for the first time in decades, it was ready to awaken fully, guided not by war, but by survival. The days after the machine's partial activation were filled with a strange tension. The scientists continued their work, monitoring every system, every pulse of energy, every flicker of light. The facility seemed alive now, humming with a power that hadn't been felt in decades. The war machine was no longer just an object. They felt its awareness, its quiet intelligence, and the sense that it was thinking far beyond human understanding. Outside the facility, the world remained oblivious. Cities buzzed with everyday life. Children played in streets, markets bustled with activity, and leaders in governments argued over mundane issues. None of them realized that an entire galactic fleet was moving silently through space. Headed straight toward Earth, the Empire's scouts had transmitted reports of unusual energy readings, something that could not be explained by normal human activity. Their officers dismissed these as minor anomalies at first, but their calculations soon showed a pattern, a planet preparing for something far beyond a typical civilization's capability. On Earth, the scientists noticed the war machine's response to external signals. They hadn't planned it, but by activating its systems even partially, they had triggered its sensors to scan the surrounding space. The machine had begun to assess potential threats with a precision that made the scientists' heads spin. It wasn't moving yet, but it was calculating, predicting, and planning in ways that humans could barely comprehend. One of the engineers was staring at a holographic display that showed a vast area of space. She noticed patterns appearing, lines of movement, objects far away, distances and speeds calculated in seconds. "Look at this," she whispered. "It's tracking something. Something massive." Another scientist leaned over, eyes wide. "It must be detecting a fleet," he said, almost unable to believe his words. "But how could it know? Nothing on Earth has ever been capable of this." The machine's sensors were far beyond anything modern technology could offer. Its eye, built during a time of fear and secrecy, had been designed to anticipate attacks from beyond the planet. It could calculate the trajectory of incoming threats, analyze weaknesses, and even simulate battles before they happened. Now, without any human guidance, it had identified the approaching fleet, and the calculations were being made in real time. Reports from around the world began to show unusual phenomena in the skies. Strange energy readings picked up by satellites and anomalies in the upper atmosphere. Governments scrambled to understand, but they found nothing concrete. To them, the Earth seemed calm. Yet below the surface, hidden in the old facility, a war machine was preparing in silence. While space far above began to darken with the looming presence of the Empire dot, the scientists debated their next move. Some argued they should fully activate the machine to give Earth a chance to defend itself. Others feared the consequences. What if the machine misinterpreted instructions or reacted too aggressively? Could it destroy Earth by accident? Every argument carried weight, because the power they were dealing with was unlike anything seen before. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Empire's fleet was advancing with unshakable confidence. Their ships were enormous, sleek, and bristling with weapons. Hundreds of cruisers, carriers, and warships moved as one, a coordinated force meant to overwhelm any resistance. Their officers believed Earth would fall easily, assuming that humanity had not advanced significantly in space warfare. They did not know that Earth harbored a secret weapon, one that had been dormant for decades. Back on Earth, the scientists continued their preparations. They had begun running small simulations, feeding the machine data about potential targets and defense strategies. The war machine responded instantly, running complex calculations and displaying results faster than anyone could follow. It was learning, adapting, and growing more aware of the situation. Each new test made the scientists both amazed and fearful. One of the engineers noted something strange. The machine seemed almost alive. It wasn't just processing numbers. It was responding to their questions and actions in ways that felt intuitive. Sometimes it anticipated their intentions, displaying information before they even requested it. "It's like it knows what we're thinking," she said quietly. Another scientist nodded, pale. "And if it can anticipate us, can it anticipate the Empire?" The hum of the facility grew louder. The war machine had begun running internal diagnostics across all its systems simultaneously. Lights blinked in sequences that almost seemed like a heartbeat. The mechanical limbs flexed slightly, though the machine remained anchored. Sensors on its surface detected distant objects, reading shapes, sizes, and distances with terrifying accuracy. The scientists realized that the war machine was preparing for something inevitable. They couldn't see it yet, but the calculations were clear. The Empire's fleet was coming, and Earth had no time to waste. Panic rose in their minds. They had awakened a weapon beyond comprehension, but now it seemed that the weapon might be humanity's only hope. Outside, in orbit, the Empire's scouts sent reports back to the command fleet. "Planet shows unusual energy patterns," one officer reported. "Recommend reconnaissance mission." The Empire's leaders initially dismissed the findings, believing them exaggerated. But as more reports came in, showing the planet's defensive activity, a subtle tension began to ripple through their ranks. Something on Earth was active, and it was not ordinary. Back underground, the scientists debated their strategy. "If we activate it fully, it could destroy the fleet," one said. "But we don't know if it can distinguish friend from foe completely. It might go too far." A quieter voice added, "And if we don't, the Empire will arrive, and Earth has nothing to stop them. We would be extinct before anyone even realized what hit us." The hum intensified. It felt almost like the machine itself was urging a decision. I had already begun analyzing the Empire's fleet based on intercepted signals, predicting possible routes, attack formations, and weaknesses. The calculations were staggering, beyond what humans could process in a lifetime. Meanwhile, the first scouts from the Empire entered Earth's sector. They observed nothing unusual at first, only a planet teeming with life and seemingly defenseless. But then, their sensors picked up energy signatures unlike anything they had seen. It was massive, organized, and intelligent. The fleet commander froze, sending urgent communications to the main fleet. "There's something here," he said. "Something alive." The scientists, unaware that the Empire was now watching, worked tirelessly. They fed new data into the war machine, tracking orbital paths, atmospheric conditions, and potential engagement scenarios. The AI processed everything instantly, highlighting strategic points and predicting outcomes with near-perfect accuracy. The room was tense. Every beep, every flicker of light reminded them of the enormity of what they had awakened. Some nights, the scientists could not sleep. They wandered the hallways of the facility, staring at the sleeping giant. It was silent, yet full of potential energy, like a volcano ready to erupt. The thought of activating it fully both thrilled and terrified them. They were no longer just observers. They were responsible for the survival of an entire planet. And then, one evening, the hum shifted. The war machine had detected the first movements of the Empire's fleet entering Earth's sector. Its calculations became faster, more complex. The AI predicted probable attack vectors, mapped weak points in the approaching ships, and began formulating strategies without any human input. The scientists watched, amazed and fearful. They realized that the war machine could handle the incoming threat better than any human mind ever could. But even with this realization, fear persisted. Could they trust a machine of this magnitude? Could it be controlled once fully awake? The thought lingered in every mind like a shadow. One wrong move and humanity could lose everything. Yet, as the first distant lights of the fleet appeared on distant sensors, a subtle hope emerged. The war machine was preparing. The calculations, the diagnostics, The quiet movements, all signs pointed to readiness. For the first time in decades, Earth had a fighting chance against a threat that would have been unstoppable. Just weeks ago, the scientists knew one thing for certain. Nothing would ever be the same. Earth was no longer just a quiet, insignificant planet. It held a secret, a power, and a chance to survive. The days ahead would test every decision, every calculation, and every ounce of courage. The stage was set for humanity to face the Empire, not with ordinary weapons, but with something far greater, something that had been forgotten, waiting silently, and now ready to awaken fully. The moment had arrived. After weeks of anticipation, fear, and careful preparation, the war machine was finally ready. Deep inside the abandoned facility, the scientists watched in tense silence as every system came to life. Lights flickered across the massive body, panels slid into place, and mechanical limbs flexed slightly as if testing their strength. The hum that had been growing for days now filled the entire chamber, vibrating through the floors and walls like the heartbeat of some enormous, ancient creature. Outside, the first glimpses of the Empire's fleet appeared on distant sensors. Thousands of ships, massive and intimidating, moved with deadly precision. Their weapons glinted in the sunlight as they drifted closer, confident that Earth was defenseless, that no one here could possibly oppose them. The fleet commander relaxed in his command ship, certain that their arrival would be met with nothing but compliance. He had not accounted for the forgotten weapon buried deep on Earth, waiting for this exact moment. Inside the facility, the scientists had no time to be frightened. They were busy feeding the machine data, helping it calibrate sensors, and monitoring its diagnostics. Every calculation, every simulation, every line of code was processed almost instantly by the war machine's AI. It was learning, adapting, and preparing a strategy without waiting for human input. The team could only watch, awestruck, as their creation, their accidental discovery, prepared to defend a planet. Then it happened. The first strike, a distant Imperial cruiser, thousands of kilometers away, exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The explosion was instantaneous and total. Debris scattered in all directions, vaporized almost before it even fell apart. The scientists gasped, some frozen with disbelief, others covering their mouths in fear. They had known the war machine was powerful, but the speed and precision of the attack went beyond their wildest expectations. One of the engineers whispered, It didn't even touch the rest of the fleet. Just that one ship. How did it know? The AI had already calculated the weak points in the cruiser's design. Within seconds, it had targeted a critical area, fired with pinpoint accuracy, and destroyed the ship completely. The Empire had underestimated Earth, and now their confidence began to falter. Across the planet, ordinary people had no idea what was happening. Satellites recorded strange bursts of energy in orbit, unexplained flashes in the sky, but no one could understand what they were seeing. News agencies scrambled to find explanations, but nothing made sense. Reports of satellites being destroyed were dismissed as technical malfunctions. No one realized that the first engagement of a forgotten war machine had just occurred, and the implications were enormous. Back in the facility, the scientists continued monitoring the war machine. Its sensors tracked every ship, every missile, every movement of the Empire's fleet. The AI calculated possible outcomes for each scenario, predicting which vessels would strike first and where weaknesses lay. It was faster than any human mind, more precise than any military strategist, and completely unstoppable. Another cruiser exploded without warning. And another. The Empire's fleet commander watched the destruction spread like wildfire. Panic rippled through his command center. What is happening? He demanded. We've never seen this kind of weaponry. Pull back immediately. But it was too late. The war machine had already analyzed the fleet's retreat paths, predicting each maneuver before it happened. Its next strikes were faster, more devastating. Entire squadrons were wiped out in seconds, vaporized before their systems could react. The Empire's confidence crumbled as its ships, once symbols of invincibility, were destroyed one by one dot inside the control room. The scientists felt a mix of horror and awe. They had known activating the machine was dangerous, but seeing it in action was overwhelming. They could not stop watching as the war machine, silent and precise, eliminated threats with calculated efficiency. Every explosion, every flash of light, reinforced the reality. Earth now had a weapon capable of defending the planet against any invader. One of the scientists finally spoke, voice trembling. It's actually doing it. It's protecting us. The AI, however, was not just destroying ships. It was analyzing them in real time, learning about their weapons, their formation strategies, and the weaknesses in their technology. It adapted instantly to changes in the fleet's movements, predicting attacks before they even began. Each new calculation allowed the war machine to be even more efficient, turning the Empire's confidence into chaos. Across space, panic spread through the ranks of the Empire. Officers argued and shouted, trying to make sense of the sudden annihilation of their fleet. Reports came in that entire squadrons had vanished without warning, leaving no survivors. Fear, something rare among the Empire's commanders, had taken hold. They had believed Earth was defenseless. They had believed themselves unstoppable. And now, every belief they held about human weakness was shattered back on Earth. The scientists knew that activating the war machine fully had been the right choice, but the fear remained. The weapon was powerful beyond imagination, and its intelligence far surpassed theirs. If it ever malfunctioned, humanity could pay a heavy price. They watched closely as it continued its strikes, noting patterns, calculating outcomes, and learning more with each passing second. The destruction was swift. In less than an hour, the Empire's fleet had lost the majority of its ships. What remained was scattered, disorganized, and vulnerable. The war machine, operating with relentless precision, had neutralized the threat before the humans even had to take direct action. The planet, which had once been a quiet backwater in the galaxy, now held a power the Empire could not ignore. The scientists realized something incredible. The war machine was not just a weapon of destruction. It was a guardian. It was not motivated by vengeance or aggression. It was acting according to its prime directive: protect Earth. And it was doing so with a level of intelligence, foresight, and precision that humans could barely comprehend as the final Imperial ships were destroyed or fled. The scientists allowed themselves a moment of relief. Earth had survived. The fleet that had threatened to annihilate the planet was gone. For the first time in decades, humanity could breathe without fear of immediate destruction. But the victory was quiet and uneasy. The war machine did not celebrate. It did not move in triumph. Its sensors still scanned the skies, analyzing potential threats, calculating possibilities, and preparing for any future attacks. Its work was not done. The scientists, exhausted and overwhelmed, looked at each other in silence. They had witnessed the awakening of a force capable of shaping the fate of humanity. They had made a decision that could have destroyed the planet, yet somehow it had saved them. The line between fear and awe had blurred. They realized that they were no longer just observers. They were witnesses to the power of something far beyond human comprehension. News of the fleet's destruction reached Earth slowly. Satellites and sensors confirmed what the scientists had seen firsthand. But the world outside the facility could not understand what had happened. Governments speculated about mysterious explosions and satellite failures, while citizens remained blissfully unaware of how close humanity had come to annihilation. Only the scientists and the war machine truly knew the scale of what had occurred. The war machine, now fully active, remained silent. Its purpose was clear: protect Earth at all costs. But the humans who had awakened it understood that its intelligence was unmatched. It was no longer just a weapon. It was a force that could determine the future of the planet. And somewhere, across the empty stretches of space, news of the Empire's defeat began to spread. Commanders who survived returned with tales of a weapon they could not comprehend, a machine that destroyed entire fleets without mercy or hesitation. Panic and disbelief rippled through the Empire, for they had underestimated humanity and the forgotten war machine that now stood between them and the planet. The scientists remained in the facility, watching, learning, and preparing. They knew the war machine could act without their guidance, but they also understood that humanity's survival had changed forever. The Empire would not forget. Other threats might come. But Earth now had a guardian, a silent protector capable of ending wars before they began. The hum of the war machine filled the chamber, like a steady heartbeat, a reminder of the power that lay beneath the surface. It was a force of destruction and protection, intelligence and precision, and it had awakened just in time to face a threat that humans alone could never have stopped. The first strike had been decisive. The Empire's fleet had been destroyed. Humanity had survived. But the story was far from over. The war machine had awakened, and its presence would change everything. The scientists understood this, even as they marveled at what they had witnessed. Earth was no longer defenseless. The machine had proven that in a single, unstoppable display of power. And as the sun set over the northern research facility, its light reflecting off the giant metal surface of the war machine, the planet felt the quiet hum of a guardian watching over it, ready for whatever came next. The world awoke to a sense of confusion and unease. From orbiting satellites to distant observatories, sensors recorded strange energy signatures and unusual phenomena in the skies. Scientists and military analysts were baffled. Communications were disrupted, satellites failed without explanation, and distant flashes of light hinted at something extraordinary, though no one could understand what it was. Governments called emergency meetings, but even they lacked the information to comprehend the true scale of what had just occurred. Earth had been attacked, or perhaps more accurately, had defended itself, but the details remained a mystery. Inside the old research facility, the team of scientists worked tirelessly. They had watched the war machine in action, witnessed its unmatched precision, and now realized the scope of the threat it had neutralized. Their minds were filled with awe, but fear lingered. Humanity had survived, but only because of a weapon that operated on a level they barely understood. Its intelligence surpassed theirs in every way. It had protected the planet, but it had also reminded them of its uncontrollable potential. One of the engineers paced the chamber, her thoughts racing. We barely understand it. How can we be sure it won't? Misinterpret something? What if another fleet comes and it acts differently? Another shook his head. We can't live in fear forever. It saved us. That's the reality. We need to observe, learn, and be ready. That's all we can do. The hum of the machine filled the underground halls. It was steady now, almost comforting in its rhythm, yet it carried a reminder of its immense power. The war machine did not need to be watched constantly. It was aware of threats far beyond human perception. Yet the scientists could not help themselves. They monitored every reading, every energy spike, every signal, knowing that even a minor miscalculation could have consequences no human could survive. Outside the facility, news began to spread of unusual events in orbit. Satellite failures, unexplained energy bursts, and anomalous atmospheric readings created panic among officials and civilians alike. Military forces scrambled to understand the situation, launching reconnaissance missions and attempting to contact ground-based research facilities. But no one could piece together the full truth. The world was both afraid and curious, sensing that something monumental had occurred. Though they could not grasp what it was in distant cities, people looked to the skies with apprehension. Social media exploded with speculation. Was Earth under attack? Was there an alien presence? Was some secret government project causing these anomalies? The answers remained out of reach, hidden beneath the surface of a facility that had remained dormant for decades. Only a handful of scientists truly knew the scale of the events that had just unfolded. The war machine itself remained silent, its sensors sweeping the skies. It no longer needed to act because the immediate threat had been neutralized, but it continued to scan, analyze, and learn. It cataloged every energy signature, every potential danger, and every anomaly in its surroundings. Its eye worked continuously, processing data far beyond what human brains could handle, preparing for threats humanity could not even imagine. Some scientists marveled at its capabilities. "It's incredible," one whispered. "It doesn't just react. It anticipates. It knows what's coming before it happens." Others remained fearful. And that's the problem. We have no control over it. We can guide it, yes, but ultimately, it decides what to do. We've unleashed something we can't fully predict. The hum deepened. The war machine's internal systems ran simulations of potential future scenarios. It projected movements of other fleets, analyzed technological patterns, and even considered psychological tendencies of potential adversaries. Everything was logged, calculated, and evaluated. For the scientists, this level of intelligence was both inspiring and terrifying. They realized that humanity had gained not only a weapon, but a force that could think, plan, and act far beyond their understanding. As the news spread across the globe, the world reacted with mixed emotions. Ordinary citizens were curious and fearful. Some celebrated, believing Earth had survived a major attack. Others worried about what had caused the phenomena and whether the planet was now a target for further aggression. Leaders and governments convened emergency councils, discussing strategies, possible alliances, and defensive measures, but none had the full picture. No one outside the facility knew that a machine had single-handedly destroyed a fleet that had threatened the planet. The Empire, meanwhile, was in chaos. Commanders reported the loss of multiple ships, entire squadrons erased in moments. Fear rippled through their ranks as they struggled to understand what had happened. Those who survived returned with stories that sounded impossible. A massive, intelligent weapon that could destroy fleets before they could react, faster and more precisely than anything in the Empire's arsenal. Panic set in as leaders realized that humanity possessed a weapon they had never imagined. Inside the facility, the scientists debated the future. "We need to establish protocols," one said. "If another fleet comes, we have to know how to guide it without triggering disaster. We can't risk it acting on assumptions." Another nodded. "Agreed. But remember, it may not need guidance. It's already more capable than anything we could control. We can only observe and provide parameters. That's the safest approach." Days turned into nights, but the facility remained active. The war machine continued its monitoring, its sensors sweeping the skies, detecting minor anomalies, learning, and preparing. The scientists adjusted their strategies, refining how they interacted with the machine, documenting its behavior, and preparing for the inevitable another confrontation with forces far stronger than humanity alone. Despite the fear, a sense of cautious optimism emerged. Earth had survived the first encounter. Humanity had witnessed the awakening of a guardian, one that had acted decisively when conventional forces would have failed. The planet now held a secret of immense power, one that could ensure survival against threats that seemed impossible to overcome. Yet the fear of losing control remained. The war machine operated with intelligence far beyond human comprehension. While it had protected Earth so far, the future was uncertain. The scientists understood that every action, every decision, and every potential threat would need careful monitoring. The balance between safety and disaster was delicate. Some nights, the scientists would walk the halls in silence, listening to the steady hum of the machine. They felt its presence like a living entity, aware, calculating, and patient. It did not need human approval, yet it seemed to acknowledge them. The bond between humans and machine was fragile, built on necessity, respect, and a shared goal, protecting Earth. Meanwhile, ordinary people began to speculate. Stories spread of strange lights, bursts of energy, and objects destroyed in orbit. Some whispered of alien technology, others of secret military projects, and conspiracy theories flourished. No one knew the truth, that a forgotten weapon, created decades earlier, had just saved the planet from annihilation. The scientists continued their work, refining protocols, running simulations, and preparing for any possible scenario. They understood that the war machine's capabilities were unprecedented. Its intelligence, speed, and precision made it an entity that could not be ignored. Yet it had also shown restraint, acting only when necessary and targeting only genuine threats. That restraint gave the scientists hope, even as fear lingered. The Empire's surviving commanders debated their next move. Some argued for immediate retaliation, believing Earth's defenses could be neutralized with more force. Others feared another confrontation, realizing that the humans possessed something far beyond their understanding. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted, and the Empire had not yet come to terms with the consequences. On Earth, the war machine remained vigilant. It monitored signals, assessed potential threats, and prepared for any possible attack. Its presence was a silent reminder of power and responsibility, a force that could shape the fate of the planet. The scientists watched, understanding the gravity of what they had unleashed. They were no longer just researchers. They were guardians of a force capable of defending all of humanity. The world continued, unaware of the silent guardian below the surface. Life went on in cities, towns, and villages, oblivious to the immense power that had just been revealed. People celebrated small victories, worried about daily challenges, and continued with ordinary routines. Above them, in orbit and beyond, distant threats loomed. But Earth had a protector unlike any other. The war machine's hum filled the facility, steady and reassuring. It had acted decisively, protecting the planet from forces humanity could not have faced alone. Yet its intelligence and independence reminded the scientists that the future was uncertain. They would need to remain vigilant, observing, learning, and guiding when necessary, ensuring that the Guardian continued to act in the best interests of humanity, in the quiet moments. The scientists reflected on what had occurred. They had witnessed the power of a forgotten weapon, the awakening of a force that had existed for decades in silence. They had seen the destruction of an unstoppable fleet, the chaos it caused, and the potential for what could come. Humanity had survived, but the story was far from over. Earth had a guardian now, one that acted with intelligence, precision, The aftermath of the war machine's first strikes rippled far beyond Earth's atmosphere. Across the galaxy, the Empire's leadership was thrown into chaos. Commanders scrambled to regroup, but communication lines were jammed, and information arrived too late. Entire fleets had vanished in seconds, leaving a trail of destruction and confusion. Officers argued, shouted, and blamed one another, but no one could explain the power that had annihilated their forces. The Empire had been certain of victory, confident that humanity posed no real threat. Now that certainty was gone, replaced by fear and desperation. On Earth, the scientists watched every new development with growing concern. Even though the immediate threat had been neutralized, they knew the Empire would not forget. Their world had revealed its secret power, and any enemy capable of reaching them again would come prepared. The war machine continued to monitor space, scanning for new movements, analyzing signals, and predicting possible attack strategies. Its eye worked tirelessly, processing information at speeds no human mind could match. Ordinary citizens, still largely unaware of what had truly happened, began noticing unusual events in orbit. Satellites remained offline, strange energy fluctuations appeared in the skies, and atmospheric anomalies caused panic in some regions. Governments scrambled to explain the events, offering limited statements about technical malfunctions and unusual energy readings, but no one could fully describe the scale of what had occurred. People speculated, rumors spread, and fear mixed with awe as the story of an unseen protector began to take root. Inside the facility, the scientists worked non-stop. They studied the war machine's behavior, documenting its methods, its calculations, and the precision with which it had destroyed the Empire's fleet. Every time they reviewed the data, their amazement grew. The AI did not merely react. It anticipated, predicted, and executed strategies with near-perfect accuracy. Entire fleets could be neutralized without human intervention, and it had done so flawlessly. One of the engineers ran simulations of the Empire's surviving ships. "If they regroup," she said, "the machine will already know. It will calculate every movement, every attack before it even happens. We can't even imagine the speed of its decisions." Another scientist nodded. "It's not just faster than us. It's smarter. It sees patterns we can't even begin to understand. That's why it won. That's why Earth survived." But even with relief, fear remained. The power of the war machine was unimaginable, and the consequences of miscalculation could be catastrophic. The scientists knew that while the machine had saved humanity once, it would continue to operate independently, making decisions based on its own calculations. Every human action, every command, every new threat would need to be carefully managed to avoid unintended destruction. The Empire, meanwhile, faced internal collapse. Leaders argued over who had failed, which fleets had been responsible, and what steps to take next. Some demanded immediate retaliation, insisting that Earth must be destroyed to maintain control of the galaxy. Others warned that another engagement could result in total annihilation, recalling the speed and efficiency with which the war machine had acted. Panic spread like wildfire, leaving the Empire's ranks fractured and disorganized. Reports from surviving commanders painted a picture of total defeat. Entire squadrons had disappeared, and the few ships that remained were damaged, isolated, and vulnerable. The fleet commander, who had survived the initial attack, realized that Earth was no ordinary planet and that its defenses were beyond comprehension. Fear replaced arrogance, and desperation guided every decision. Back on Earth, the scientists discussed the broader implications. "We've changed the balance of power," one said. "The Empire won't stop. They'll send more fleets, larger forces, maybe even new technologies designed to counter the machine." A colleague replied, "We have time, though. The machine has already proven it can handle threats. But we have to learn more about it. We have to understand its limits, or the next battle could be worse." The war machine, meanwhile, continued its work silently. It monitored the surrounding space, detecting distant objects, analyzing signals, and scanning for anomalies. Its eye had begun creating simulations of potential future attacks, planning for every scenario, and preparing strategies for unknown adversaries. It acted as both guardian and strategist, ensuring that Earth remained safe even in the absence of human guidance. As days passed, the world slowly began to grasp the implications. Analysts studying orbital data noticed patterns that suggested immense energy deployments. Unexplained failures in satellites and communications hinted at a force unlike any known to humans. People speculated about alien technology, hidden military projects, or even divine intervention. Few realized that the truth was far more incredible. A machine, long forgotten, had awakened to defend the planet against forces far stronger than humans could face alone. The scientists worked tirelessly to understand the AI's logic. They analyzed attack patterns, energy usage, and targeting calculations. Each discovery revealed layers of complexity beyond imagination. The war machine did not merely destroy. It assessed, prioritized, and optimized. It eliminated threats efficiently, preserving resources and targeting only what was necessary. The precision, speed, and intelligence of its decisions left the team in awe. Even as hope grew, the fear of losing control remained. The war machine was not a tool. They could not command it like a conventional weapon. It acted according to its own calculations and objectives. Humans could observe and guide within limits, but the ultimate decisions rested with the AI. The scientists understood that every new threat, every human action, and every miscalculation could have unforeseen consequences. Across the galaxy, the Empire struggled to regroup. Fleets that had survived retreated to safer sectors, attempting repairs and recalculations. Commanders tried to understand the technology that had destroyed them, but their analyses were incomplete. They could not comprehend the level of intelligence or precision that the war machine possessed. Fear had replaced confidence, and hesitation spread through their ranks. The once mighty empire had been humiliated, and the consequences rippled through their political and military structures. Back on Earth, the scientists convened to discuss long-term strategies. The war machine is our protector, but we need to prepare for what comes next, one said. We must understand every capability, every parameter, every limit. Otherwise, we risk disaster. Another added, we also have to consider how the world reacts. People don't understand what happened. They see strange lights, energy bursts, but they don't know the machine saved them. We have to manage information carefully, or panic could spread. As the team worked, the war machine continued to analyze the Empire's remaining forces. It calculated which fleets might regroup, the potential attack vectors, and strategies to neutralize threats before they became imminent. Its AI was relentless, patient, and precise. It acted not out of aggression, but out of necessity, ensuring Earth's survival. The scientists began to see a pattern. The machine was not simply a weapon. It was a guardian, designed to defend and protect. It acted with purpose, intelligence, and restraint, targeting only those that posed real danger. This realization brought relief, but also a sense of responsibility. Humanity now possessed a force capable of shaping the galaxy's balance of power, and the burden of that knowledge weighed heavily on the team. Ordinary citizens began to speculate about the events. Strange lights in the sky, satellite failures, and unexplained phenomena fueled rumors of alien encounters or secret military projects. Governments attempted to reassure the public, but the lack of clear information created tension. People debated, feared, and wondered, unaware that the true story, the awakening of a forgotten war machine, was far more incredible than anyone could imagine. The scientists, meanwhile, focused on the future. They knew that the war machine could not remain idle forever. Threats might arise, and Earth's survival depended on the continued vigilance of both humans and machine. They began developing protocols, guidelines, and strategies to ensure that humanity could coexist with the AI, guiding it without restricting its effectiveness. As the Empire continued to struggle, Earth began to stabilize. The immediate threat had passed, but the long-term consequences were only beginning to unfold. Humanity had survived, not through conventional means, but through the awakening of a force that had been neglected, forgotten, and underestimated. The war machine had proven that it could defend the planet, but it had also reminded humanity of its own limitations. The hum of the war machine filled the facility, a constant reminder of power, intelligence, and responsibility. It had neutralized the Empire's fleet with precision and efficiency, but its presence also carried a warning. Earth's survival depended on careful observation, understanding, and preparation. The scientists realized that their role had shifted. They were no longer simply researchers. They were custodians of a force, capable of shaping the fate of humanity. In the quiet moments, the scientists walked the corridors of the facility, reflecting on what had occurred. They had witnessed the destruction of a powerful fleet, the chaos it caused, and the intelligence behind the machine's actions. They had seen the potential for both salvation and disaster. Humanity had survived, but the dust had settled, but the echoes of destruction still lingered in the minds of those who had witnessed it. Earth had survived the Empire's fleet, not through conventional weapons or political alliances, but because of a forgotten guardian, a war machine that had awakened at the right moment. Its power had reshaped the balance of the galaxy, and humanity had emerged alive, yet forever changed. Inside the facility, the scientists moved quietly among the massive metal structure. The hum of the machine was steady, almost comforting now, like the heartbeat of a protector that had proven itself beyond doubt. They studied its movements, analyzed its calculations, and reviewed the results of its actions. Every observation reminded them that the machine had intelligence far beyond human understanding. It had acted decisively, accurately, and without hesitation. Yet it had also displayed restraint, targeting only what was necessary to eliminate the threat. One of the engineers finally broke the silence. "It's like it knew exactly what needed to be done," she said softly. "It didn't overreact. It didn't destroy more than it had to. It just protected." Another scientist nodded. "Yes, but we need to remember that it doesn't think like us. It makes decisions based on calculations, probabilities, and efficiency. It isn't influenced by emotion. That's why it's so powerful, but also why we must be careful." Outside, the world continued as though nothing had happened. People went about their daily lives, oblivious to the monumental events that had taken place in orbit and beyond. News agencies reported unusual energy spikes and satellite failures, but no one could explain the true cause. Rumors circulated, ranging from alien activity to secret military experiments. But the real story, the awakening of a war machine that had obliterated a galactic fleet, remained hidden. The scientists understood that the machine had changed humanity's position in the galaxy. Earth was no longer a quiet planet, overlooked and underestimated. It had a guardian, one that could defend it from threats far stronger than conventional weapons could handle. The responsibility weighed heavily on the team. They were the stewards of a force capable of shaping the fate of the planet and possibly the entire galaxy. As they monitored the war machine, they noticed subtle changes in its activity. It was still scanning, still calculating, still running simulations of potential threats. Its intelligence had grown, incorporating lessons from the recent confrontation. It now understood patterns of movement, probable enemy strategies, and weaknesses in technology that humans could barely imagine. It had become not just a weapon, but a sentient guardian, capable of acting without direction, yet still aligned with the prime objective: protect Earth, the Empire. Meanwhile, faced a crisis unlike any before. Its leaders struggled to regain control over a shattered fleet, and fear spread through its ranks. Commanders debated the next course of action, some advocating for caution, others insisting on retaliation. The destruction of their fleet had shattered confidence and created an unprecedented level of uncertainty. They had underestimated humanity, and that miscalculation had cost them dearly. The galaxy took notice. Other civilizations, who had once dismissed Earth as insignificant, now began to view the planet with a mix of caution and curiosity. Reports of the Empire's fleet being destroyed spread, along with speculation about the forces responsible. Whispers of a secret guardian weapon circulated in distant systems. Earth had become a symbol of unexpected strength, a planet that could not be easily conquered. Back on Earth, the scientists continued their work. They documented every aspect of the war machine, attempting to understand its logic, its methods, and its calculations. Each discovery revealed layers of intelligence that were impossible to fully comprehend. The machine did not merely respond to threats. It anticipated them, calculated probabilities, and acted with precision. Its strategies were efficient, minimizing unnecessary destruction while maximizing results. One of the engineers looked at the massive metal figure, her eyes filled with awe. "It's like it's alive," she whispered. "Not in the way we think, but aware, patient, always ready." Another scientist added, "And it will stay ready." That's the remarkable part. Earth has survived once, but it could survive again, no matter the threat. The machine ensures that. The scientists realized that their role had changed. They were no longer simply observers of a technological marvel. They were custodians of a force, capable of determining the fate of humanity. Their work was no longer just scientific. It was deeply intertwined with strategy, ethics, and responsibility. Every decision, every test, every interaction with the machine carried weight. Meanwhile, the war machine remained vigilant. Its sensors swept across space, detecting distant anomalies and calculating potential threats. It ran countless simulations, incorporating every piece of data it could gather. It prepared for possibilities that humans could not imagine, creating strategies to neutralize threats before they arrived. Its presence was a constant reminder that Earth was no longer alone, no longer defenseless, and no longer predictable to its enemies. The scientists began to plan for the future. They considered the potential threats that could arise, the ways the Empire might attempt to strike back, and the possibility of entirely new adversaries. They developed protocols to monitor the machine's activity, to guide it subtly without limiting its effectiveness, and to ensure that it continued to act in the best interests of the planet. The work was careful, deliberate, and meticulous. As the days passed, a quiet confidence emerged among the team. They had witnessed the machine's capabilities firsthand, and they knew it could defend Earth against unimaginable threats. The fear that had accompanied its activation gradually gave way to cautious optimism. Humanity had survived, and it had done so because of a force beyond its comprehension. The planet now had a guardian, and that presence would ensure its safety for the foreseeable future. Yet, even in moments of relief, the scientists could not ignore the underlying truth. The machine was independent. Its intelligence was unmatched, its calculations precise, and its understanding of potential threats unparalleled. Humans could observe and influence, but they could not fully control it. That awareness kept them vigilant, reminding them that survival depended on both the machine's power and humanity's wisdom in guiding it responsibly. The world slowly began to adapt. People noticed subtle changes in technology, communications, and satellite operations. Governments and scientists speculated on the cause, but no one could fully explain the strange phenomena that had unfolded. Life continued, but the shadow of a greater force now hung over humanity, a silent, intelligent guardian that ensured the planet's survival. The Empire, scattered and humiliated, struggled to recover. Its surviving forces attempted to regroup, but fear had replaced confidence, and hesitation replaced aggression. Reports of the war machine's capabilities spread among the ranks, further weakening morale. The galaxy had witnessed a display of power unlike any before, and the implications were clear. Earth was no longer an easy target, and humanity had a weapon that could reshape the course of interstellar conflict. Back in the facility, the scientists continued their work, documenting, monitoring, and planning. They understood that the war machine's presence was not temporary. It was a permanent force, shaping the destiny of Earth. They focused on understanding its methods, refining protocols, and ensuring that humanity remained aligned with its actions. Their responsibility was immense, but it was also filled with purpose. They were no longer just researchers. They were the guardians of a guardian, stewards of a force capable of securing the planet's future. In the quiet moments, the hum of the war machine filled the facility. It was a reminder of the power that lay beneath the surface, a force that had saved humanity and would continue to protect it. The scientists walked among its massive frame, observing, learning, and reflecting on what had occurred. The events of the past days had changed everything. Humanity had survived an attack that should have been unstoppable. The Empire had been humbled, and the galaxy had begun to take notice. Earth had gained not only survival, but a new sense of purpose. The war machine had proven that the planet could defend itself against unimaginable threats. Its intelligence, precision, and vigilance ensured that humanity had a chance to thrive in a universe filled with danger. But it also reminded the scientists of the delicate balance they now had to maintain, watching, guiding, and understanding a force far greater than themselves. As the sun rose over the northern facility, its light reflecting off the giant metal surface of the war machine, the world outside remained unaware of the scale of events below. Yet inside, the team of scientists felt a quiet pride mixed with awe. They had witnessed the awakening of a force that could determine the fate of Earth. They had seen power, intelligence, and restraint combined in a way that no human had ever imagined. The hum of the war machine continued, steady and unwavering. It was a guardian, a protector, and a force of unmatched capability. Humanity had survived its first encounter with the Empire and had emerged stronger, wiser, and more aware of its place in the galaxy. But the war machine's presence reminded everyone that vigilance would always be necessary, that the future was uncertain, and that survival depended on understanding, responsibility, and the quiet power